6 days. 11 billion bugs turned to ash. 270 million Helldivers who never came home. And a world that refused to die. They called OSHAUNE II a hive world. But to us, it was a graveyard that kept breathing. Every drop pod that fell wasn't just a mission. It was a heartbeat, pounding against extinction. We hit the ground running, through ash, bile, and the choking haze of the gloom. Not for conquest, not for medals, but for our way of life. The Predator strain thought they could bury us in their trenches. The Rupture strain believed they could outlast us beneath the crust. They were wrong. 50,000 Hive Lords downed. The swarm's heart ruptured. And when the gloom itself reached for us, we burned it back with fire and faith. The swarm took everything. We took it back. Now the haze lifts, the gloom recedes, and the galaxy breathes, for the first time in generations. This is the battle for OSHAUNE, the day we pierced the dark.
Sending down support weapon.
Initiating STL jump to the OSHAUNE system.
Day 1, planetfall. The sky over OSHAUNE was a furnace, sulfur, ash, and fire raining from the heavens. The Predator strain had dug in deep, thicker than any trench we'd seen since Hellmire. But with the DSS in orbit, the first wave made landfall. 25% of the planet cleared in the first 24 hours. The swarm broke ground. We broke them faster. On day 2, Predator siege. By the second day, the resistance hardened. Predator nests re-emerged across the equator. Hive Lords were stirring. Seismic readings flared red. Every meter of soil was contested. Every ridge bought in blood and shrapnel. Still, the line held. When the sky turned black, it wasn't night. It was the swarm burning. After the second day, our advance was strong, brutal and efficient. But the thrust began to slow. The DSS brought the orbital 380 batteries online, and the bombardment shook the crust itself. The swarm responded. Hive Lords erupted across the surface, their numbers rising into the tens of thousands. Resistance climbed past 7% within hours. By the third dawn, our momentum had nearly stalled. High Command issued a minor order. 50,000 Hive Lords to be eliminated. And with the fire and fury of the Helldiver Corps, we answered. By the end of the third day, the counteroffensive was crushed. Resistance forced back down to 4%. But the victory rang hollow. Seismic rumbling was detected beneath every major tunnel cluster. Long dormant signals re-emerged. The Hive Lords hadn't risen to fight us. They'd risen to clear the way. The Rupture Strain had returned. Day 4 began with silence. The kind that only comes before something worse. Shortly after midnight, the gloom struck back. Spore concentrations in the upper atmosphere spiked beyond containment thresholds. Within hours, corrosion warnings triggered across the DSS. Spores were eating through the polymer shielding, slow at first, then exponential. Command made the call no one wanted to hear. The DSS was to warp out for emergency purification at Carlia Station. That left OSHAUNE without orbital fire. No guns, no overwatch. 15 hours of exposed ground. The swarm moved fast. Tunnels we'd collapsed the day before reopened, spewing impalers and drones into the northern sectors. Entire battalions fought blind under the haze. We burned through every stratagem we had, supply pods, mines, even mortars from pre-eclipsed stockpiles. For 15 hours, it was chaos. No reinforcements, no orbital cover. Just Helldivers holding the line with grit, rifles, and the understanding that if we fell, so would the entire sector. When the DSS returned near dusk, the sky ignited cutting firestorms across the horizon. The swarm broke, retreating back into the cracks it had crawled from. But beneath the ash, the Rupture Strain was still moving. And we knew the next day would decide everything. Day 5 opened under fire. With the DSS back in orbit, Command restored full bombardment capacity. But the balance had shifted. Our firepower outweighed our stability. The swarm was broken, yet feral, striking from fractured hives in scattered, unpredictable waves. Resistance held near 5%, but the fighting was savage. High Command reauthorized the recoilless rifle, the first in months. It was a message. Precision no longer mattered. Power did. We used everything that turned the sand into glass. The Impalers came next, dozens at a time, bursting through fissures where the Hive Lords had fallen. For every one destroyed, 2 more clawed free. Each impact shook the surface. Artillery made of living chitin. Eagle runs saturated the southern plains. Ammo drops tripled across active sectors. Helldiver losses spiked, but the swarm finally began to collapse under the weight of continuous bombardment. By nightfall, OSHAUNE II was 80% liberated. The Rupture Strain's command signatures weakened, their seismic activity fading beneath the crust. The swarm was breaking, not from precision or strategy, but from exhaustion. We were winning. But everyone knew Day 6 would finish it, one way or another. Day 6, the final push. High Command authorized the Warp Pack stratagem. For the first time since the invasion began, we controlled the tempo. Helldivers dropped, struck, and redeployed faster than the swarm could adapt. Every strike team became a storm, a blur of fire and motion cutting across the dunes. The DSS resumed full bombardment, cycling orbital 3/8 at record pace. Eagle wings tore through the dawn sky, their trails weaving patterns of flame across the horizon. For each wave of Terminids that rose, 10 more were vaporized before touching the ground. Resistance fell fast, 90%, then 95%. The gloom began to recoil, its haze thinning as if the planet itself was exhaling. Rupture clusters collapsed under orbital fire. Hive tunnels sealed under the sheer pressure of continuous bombardment. And as the sun broke over the horizon, OSHAUNE finally went still. Silence. The kind that only comes after total war. The gloom had fractured. The swarm was broken. At 0630 hours, Command declared OSHAUNE liberated. The Hive world was clean, but the ground still trembled beneath our boots. A reminder that victory here was only a pause, never an ending. OSHAUNE is silent now. The hives are ash, the skies are clear, and for the first time in weeks, the ground isn't shaking. On paper, it's a victory. 11 billion Terminids purged, 268 million Helldivers lost. Resistance, 0. But the numbers don't tell the truth. They don't show the mud in our boots, the screams in the sand, or the moments between barrages when you realize the silence is worse than the noise. We call it liberation. Maybe it is. But every world we free feels a little emptier. The air smells cleaner, the skies look brighter, yet something always stays behind. Something that remembers what it took to burn the dark away. OSHAUNE fought back harder than any world before it. Every meter bought in blood, every dawn a gamble against extinction. And yet, we endured. Not because we were stronger, but because there was no one else left to stand. They'll call this the turning point of the war. Maybe they're right. All I know is this. When the Rupture Strain burned, the galaxy saw that the gloom could bleed. And that was enough to keep us moving. Freedom reigns. For now.
Looking 1 beginning ascent.
No matter how dark the cave or how thick the gloom, tyranny cannot hide.
They'll call it a victory, but I see penance. 11 billion bugs purged. 268 million Helldivers gone. We didn't just win a battle, we paid for it. Every drop pod that fell was faith made flesh. The gloom struck back, and still we stood. Some say the light returned when the hive fell. I say it never left. It burned in every diver who refused to fall silent. Super Earth calls it liberation. I call it the first step in the eternal war.